the sacred rewrite, how heaven sees what the world cannot. Have you ever wondered if your past disqualifies you from being loved by the divine? Have you ever looked back at the things you've done, or the things that were done to you, and thought, there's no way I'm worthy of anything sacred? If so, you're not alone. I've been there. We all have. Many of us carry shame like a second skin, believing it makes us invisible to grace. But what if I told you something radical? What if I told you that heaven doesn't just see past your darkness, it sees through it, into the very gold your soul was forged from? That your dark past isn't a disqualification, but the very soil from which your divine acceptance grows. There's a wisdom few dare to speak. Heaven doesn't operate like the world. The world keeps score, builds boxes, and holds grudges. But heaven remembers essence, not error. The first sign you're accepted by heaven, even with a dark past, is that you're still here. You're still breathing, still waking up, still questioning, still aching for light. And that ache, that's holy. That's the soul remembering where it came from. If you were truly rejected by the divine, that ache wouldn't exist. But it does. That hunger for healing is your deepest proof of belonging, because only those who are called home feel the pull. We often think acceptance must be earned, cleaned up, polished. But heaven doesn't require your perfection, it asks only for your presence. Let that sink in. It's not your resume heaven reviews, it's your readiness to return. When we hit rock bottom, we assume we've fallen too far. But the truth? Rock bottom is often the first altar. That's where many of us first cried out, if anyone or anything is out there, help me. And we expected silence. But somehow, through a stranger's kindness, a dream, a sudden peace, we felt something respond. That was not coincidence, that was recognition. The second sign you're accepted is the presence of synchronicity. Have you noticed how, even when you weren't trying, certain people, books, or moments found you just when you needed them? That's not luck, it's design. Heaven doesn't just wait for you to be good enough to reach out. It places breadcrumbs on your path, tiny signs that you're not alone, not forgotten, not beyond redemption. Maybe someone told you something that pierced your soul. Maybe you heard a song that made you cry for reasons you couldn't explain. Maybe you found this video not by chance, but because it was summoned by your soul. Heaven is less interested in your history than your alignment. The third sign you're accepted is your growing discomfort with your old patterns. Have you noticed that the things you used to tolerate, people, habits, addictions, are starting to feel heavier, more toxic? That's not guilt. That's grace. That's the spiritual immune system waking up. And it doesn't mean you failed, it means you've shifted frequencies. The fact that your conscience is louder now is a sign that your soul has remembered its worth. This is heaven whispering, you were never meant to live small. Come home. And here's something I need you to hear with your whole being. Your past is not your punishment, it's your proof. The fourth sign you've been accepted by heaven is that your pain is starting to transform into wisdom. You begin to see that what once broke you is now becoming the very thing that opens others. You speak differently now. You listen deeper. You feel more. And not because you're perfect, but because your suffering taught you compassion. The scars you tried to hide are now becoming sacred maps for those still lost. That's not coincidence. That's divine alchemy. Let me ask you something deeper than words. What if your darkest moment was the doorway to your destiny? What if the very thing you thought disqualified you was the exact experience heaven knew you needed to break open your heart, to wake you up to something eternal? Because that's the paradox of the spiritual path. We don't ascend because we've avoided the fire. We ascend because we've walked through it and still chose to love, to forgive, to rise. And every time you've chosen to get back up, even when no one was watching, even when you had every reason to give up, you were being witnessed by heaven. We've been taught to fear judgment, but true spiritual judgment is not condemnation, it's clarity. It's the moment your soul says, I see now, I remember now, I choose again. And that choice, that free will to return to love after everything you've done or failed to do, is the very thing that makes you divinely human. So if you've ever wondered whether heaven accepts you, look not at your failures, but at your longing. Look at your desire to grow, your craving for truth, your hunger for peace. These are not signs of someone rejected. These are signs of someone already chosen. How heaven uses brokenness as the path to alignment. We live in a world that worships strength, perfection, and unbroken surfaces. But heaven doesn't see as the world sees. Where others see brokenness, heaven sees openness. And where others see failure, heaven sees potential. This is the paradox that many of us wrestle with in silence. How could something so wounded, so flawed, so full of mistakes still be held in the heart of the divine? But that very question assumes that heaven values flawlessness. It doesn't. Heaven values authenticity. It values the raw, trembling hand that reaches up from the mud more than the polished crown that never bowed. Because true alignment doesn't come from image, it comes from intimacy with truth. The fifth sign you're accepted by heaven, even with a dark past, is that your heart still breaks open when it touches something sacred. Maybe it's a piece of music that brings you to tears. Maybe it's a moment of silence that wraps around you like a warm light. Maybe it's the way a child looks at you with total presence, without judgment. That breaking open, that's not weakness, that's recognition. That's your soul remembering something it knew long before this life. The fact that you can still be touched by beauty, by truth, by innocence, that is proof that your spirit is not disconnected. It is alive, and that kind of aliveness is only possible when heaven is not let go. Brokenness, when seen rightly, becomes a mirror. It reflects back to us all the places where we tried to live without love. And yes, it's painful, but it's also healing. Because in that mirror, we don't just see the wounds, we see the why. We see the child who was never held, the young adult who was never guided, the addict who was trying to escape unbearable pain, the fighter who just wanted to feel safe. And we realize we were never evil. We were untended gardens. And once we see that, the sixth sign appears. We begin to extend to ourselves a level of compassion we never knew we were worthy of. That's self-compassion. That's heaven's voice inside you. Have you ever caught yourself saying, I can't believe I did that? Not with shame, but with clarity, like you're seeing your past self from a higher place. That's not just growth, that's grace. That's the soul evolving beyond its old survival strategies. And when that happens, something beautiful unfolds. You begin to see others with new eyes. You stop judging them for their masks because you remember when you wore them too. You stop hating them for their projections because you remember when pain made you reactive. And suddenly your dark past becomes a bridge, a sacred passage that connects you to other souls who are still in the storm. The seventh sign you're accepted by heaven is that even when you feel lost, you are still guided. Think about this. How many times did you hit dead ends and still somehow end up where you needed to be? How many breakdowns turned into breakthroughs? How many nights you thought you wouldn't survive, but did? That's not just resilience. That's orchestration. Heaven doesn't always speak through thunder and light. Sometimes it moves through delays, detours, and disappointments. And when you start to see that nothing was wasted, not even your worst mistakes, you begin to understand just how deeply you've been held. Let me ask you something you may have never dared to ask yourself. What if every wrong turn was actually a divine reroute? What if the pain you thought disqualified you was actually the exact initiation your soul needed to remember its purpose? We don't like to hear that our suffering has purpose. It can feel cruel. But what if it's not about suffering itself, but what suffering strips away? The ego, the illusions, the masks, the self-betrayals. And what's left after that? Essence. What's left is the part of you that's real, unkillable, eternal. And that part, that soul, is the one heaven recognizes, always has. There's a sacred intelligence to the path even when it's messy. And when you begin to trust that, something inside you softens. You stop trying to earn love and you start to receive it. You stop rehearsing worthiness and you start remembering it. And this is where the most unexpected sign appears. Peace. Not the kind of peace that comes from having no problems, but the kind that comes from knowing you are not alone inside them. A peace that says, even here, even now, I am seen. I am known, I am loved. That peace doesn't come from logic, it comes from resonance. It's the soul's way of saying, yes, you are on the path. Keep going. The most profound truth I've learned after guiding thousands through their spiritual awakenings is this. Heaven doesn't need you to be perfect, it needs you to be present. Present with your pain. Present with your reckoning. Present with your desire to grow. You don't need to erase your past to be made new. You need only to integrate it, to honor it, to see it not as your enemy but as your teacher. Because heaven doesn't just forgive your story, it uses it. And one day you'll stand in front of someone who is drowning in the very darkness you once escaped from, and your voice, your story, your light will become their lifeline. Your scars are sacred, how heaven turns pain into spiritual power. There comes a moment on the spiritual path when we stop asking, why did this happen to me? And begin asking, what is this trying to awaken in me? That shift, subtle, profound, is the moment power returns to the soul. It's the moment we stop seeing ourselves as victims of fate and begin realizing we are midwives to our own rebirth. Your scars, once silent witnesses to unbearable nights, become sacred symbols. Not because pain is holy, but because what you did with that pain, how you alchemized it, how you grew through it, that is where the divine speaks loudest. You see, heaven doesn't just accept you in spite of your past. It entrusts you because of it. This is the mystery that humbles even the wisest among us. The deeper your descent, the wider your capacity to rise, not just for yourself, but for others. Your story, once a source of shame, now becomes a vessel of healing. The depth of your suffering creates the depth of your compassion. And compassion is the currency of heaven, not your perfection, not your achievements, but your ability to see others clearly, love them anyway, and hold them in their own becoming. I've sat with warriors who've committed unspeakable acts and watched tears fall from their eyes as they remembered their innocence. I've held hands with healers who once tried to end their own lives, only to now guide others out of that same void. I've wept with addicts who lost everything and now carry clarity that no textbook could teach. These stories are not exceptions. They are reminders. Every soul is redeemable because every soul is divine at its core. And if you're still alive, still breathing, still searching, then heaven is not done writing through you. Your darkest page is not your final chapter. And so a new question arises, one that only your soul can answer. What will you do with all that you've survived? Will you hide it away, ashamed of the path you had to walk? Or will you offer it raw, unfiltered, as proof that healing is real? Because there is someone out there right now who needs your exact journey. Not a polished version, not a cleaned-up testimony, but the real story. The one where you broke, doubted, raged, relapsed, and still chose to get back up. That story carries more light than 1,000 sermons. It's not your success that will save someone, it's your transparency. This is the final sign, the one that seals your divine acceptance. You begin to feel moved to help others, not from obligation, but from overflow. You no longer need to prove your worth, you embody it. You no longer crave validation, you radiate truth. And people begin to feel it. They come to you not because you have all the answers, but because your presence feels safe. You've walked through fire and didn't become bitter. You faced the shadows and didn't lose your light. You've been shattered and still chose softness. That energy is unmistakable. That frequency is heaven in human form. So what now? You've heard the signs, you've felt them in your bones. But this isn't just about awareness, it's about activation. The next step is yours. Will you walk as someone who knows they are accepted, not someday, not after more healing, but now? Will you dare to live like someone who is already forgiven, already chosen, already enough? Because the truth is, you've always belonged. You were never separate. The only thing that was ever in question was your own willingness to believe it. And now, you know. Not as a concept, but as a felt experience in your soul. Let me leave you with this. If heaven could speak to you right now, it wouldn't list your mistakes. It wouldn't replay your failures. It would whisper something so simple, so devastatingly beautiful, that it would undo every lie you've ever believed about yourself. It would say, "You are still mine. Not you were, not you will be, you are." And in that knowing, in that sacred remembrance, you rise. Not because you are perfect, but because you are loved. Not because you've earned it, but because you were always worthy. Your scars are sacred. Your journey is holy. And heaven has never stopped walking with you, not for a single breath. The return to innocence, living every day as one already chosen by heaven. When you finally accept that heaven has already accepted you, something subtle, almost imperceptible at first, begins to shift. The way you speak softens. The way you breathe deepens. The way you look at yourself in the mirror is no longer with judgment, but with a sacred kind of curiosity. Who am I becoming now that I know I am loved? And in this question, something beautiful awakens. You don't just remember who you were before the pain, you begin to reimagine who you could be after it. This is the return to innocence. Not a naive or untested purity, but a hard-won wholeness. The kind that comes when your soul has been through the fire and chose to keep loving anyway. You begin to walk differently in the world, not because the world has changed, but because you have. You no longer seek to outrun your past. You hold it like a well-read book, not for nostalgia, but for guidance. You're not ashamed of it anymore. It's part of your medicine now. You realize that people don't need to see perfection in you, they need to see permission. Permission to feel deeply. Permission to fall and rise again. Permission to be human and holy at the same time. That's the gift you carry now. Not just a story of survival, but a frequency of freedom. And here's the most radical truth of all. You don't have to be extraordinary to be divinely accepted. You don't need to be a monk, a mystic, or a miracle worker. You only need to be honest. That's what heaven responds to, not the mask, but the marrow. Not the performance, but the presence. When you speak your truth, even if your voice trembles, you open portals. When you love through your pain, you become a sanctuary. When you forgive without an apology, you become a doorway to grace. These are not small acts. These are seismic shifts in the spiritual ecosystem of the planet. So we begin to realize heaven is not just a distant destination. It is a dimension of consciousness we carry within us. Every time you choose compassion over condemnation, you step into it. Every time you choose stillness over noise, presence over performance, alignment over approval, you are living heaven now. This is not metaphor. This is energetic reality. And the more of us who walk this way, the more we activate a collective remembrance that no one is too far gone. That light was never gone from us. It was only buried. And we are the ones digging it back out, breath by breath. Let me ask you something only your soul can answer. What would your life look like if you knew you were already enough? How would you speak to yourself? What would you stop tolerating? What would you finally allow yourself to create, to say, to feel? The world is not waiting for another perfect being. It's waiting for someone real enough to radiate truth. Someone who can walk into a room and shift the energy without saying a word, simply because they carry the conviction that they are already held, already chosen, already home. You don't need to earn the light. You are the light. You don't need a title to carry the sacred. You are the sacred. The very fact that you're still here, still seeking, still softening, still daring to believe in something higher, is the proof you are not broken. You are becoming. And the more you live from that knowing, the more you become a vessel through which heaven flows into earth. That's not a metaphor. That's a mission. And it's one only you can walk in your exact way. Not by rejecting your past, but by integrating it. Not by being flawless, but by being fearlessly you. So when the world tries to make you forget, come back to this. You are still mine. These are not just heaven's words, they are your soul's echo. You are still worthy. You are still enough. You are still part of the divine blueprint. And no matter how far you think you've fallen, you've never left the center. You've only been walking the spiral, deeper, truer, closer to the core. And now you remember, not just with your mind, but with your whole being. You are not waiting for grace. You are the living proof that it never left. Once you understand that heaven has not only forgiven you, but fully embraced you, scars and all, you begin to live in a way that defies logic and rewrites spiritual gravity. You realize that your life is no longer just about personal healing or inner peace. It's about transmission. Every step you take becomes a form of prayer. Every breath you release becomes a declaration: I belong. I am chosen. I am here to serve. You don't need to preach, perform, or perfect anything. You simply need to become the embodiment of the truth you've remembered. That's how heaven expresses itself through a human form. But let's be honest, this way of living isn't always easy. As your frequency rises, so will your awareness of everything that no longer matches it. Old relationships may fall away. Familiar environments may begin to feel foreign. Your old identity might feel like a coat 2 sizes too small. This shedding can feel like loss, but it's actually liberation. You are not being punished, you're being prepared. The divine is clearing the space around you so that the light within you can expand without resistance. You're not losing your life, you're finally stepping into it fully. And as you step into that new embodiment, a sacred responsibility emerges, not from obligation, but from overflow. You begin to feel a pull to serve, to give, to create, to heal, not because you're trying to earn worth, but because your soul can no longer contain what it's become. This is the true sign of divine acceptance, when your healing becomes someone else's permission, when your past becomes someone else's compass, when your voice becomes someone else's bridge between despair and hope. That's not ego, that's alignment. And here's the paradox you'll face. The more divine you become, the more human you feel. You'll cry more deeply, laugh more freely, love more wildly. You'll stop trying to escape the human experience and instead infuse it with sacredness. Washing the dishes becomes a ritual. Holding someone's hand becomes a transmission. Sitting in silence becomes communion. You realize that heaven was never somewhere you were trying to get to. It was always something you were meant to bring here. Through you, through your presence, through your yes. Let me ask you something even deeper now. What if you were the miracle someone has been praying for? What if your existence, as it is right now, not later, not after more achievements, is already the answer to cries you haven't even heard yet? This is the level of impact we're talking about. Not fame, not followers, not influence, but energetic legacy. A life that radiates so much permission, forgiveness, and clarity that others wake up just by being in your field. And the only requirement for this kind of impact? That you stop hiding your light. You are not here to be small. You are not here to apologize for your wholeness. You are not here to dilute your frequency to make others comfortable. You are here to remember who you are, again and again, until your very existence becomes a living activation. And this doesn't mean you won't stumble or forget. It means that even when you do, you return faster. You forgive quicker. You realign easier. Your spiritual muscles grow stronger, and eventually your default state becomes one of trust. Not because life is easy, but because you know you're held. You become a living sanctuary, a walking temple, a breathing reminder that even with a dark past, even with a shattered history, even with years of disbelief, you were never disqualified. You were always the one. And now the world feels different because you are different. You start to notice that people open up around you. Strangers feel safe. Children sense something ancient in your eyes. Nature speaks to you more clearly. Time slows down in your presence. Why? Because you've stopped resisting your divinity. You've surrendered to your original assignment, to be the bridge between heaven and earth. So walk forward now. Not as someone trying to become good enough for heaven, but as someone who remembers they've been chosen from the beginning. The real work now is to live like it, to move like it, to speak like it, to love like it. Every day, every moment, every breath. Because the world doesn't just need another voice. It needs a vessel, And that vessel is you, not someday, not later.